The London exhibition finished today. I haven't heard whether it's been successful or not, but let's hope so. I've got 6 pieces still in a gallery in Newport in South Wales, which will be there till January. It's anyone near enough to go and have a look. And there's an exhibition in Tenby, which is also in South Wales, which begins at the beginning of January, and I've got 2 pieces in that. So it's nice that my work is starting to get out and about into galleries. Even if it doesn't sell, it's nice that people are seeing it. So that's all good. So the last time I saw you, I was working on the commission of the couple sitting on the bench, and it's almost done. So I thought I would show you that this evening. So Rob, if you can just drop down onto this camera, I'll show you. So here they are, minus their bench. I'll put them on the bench in a minute to show you. Can we have a bit more of a close-up of this? Thank you. So there they are, very loving couple, Steve and Cindy. They're not watching live tonight, but they will be watching later. So here they are with all their hands done now. In fact, everything is done on this now, apart from a little bit of varnishing, which I'm going to do to show you a bit later this evening. So all their clothing is done, the shirt, lovely check shirt, her very bright scarf and her nice bright orange skirt with the border around here. Glasses, obviously, they were quite tricky to do, but I think they worked okay. And the hands. Now the hands, obviously the poses are quite difficult because, you know, I wanted to get them looking very affectionate. And also they were very keen to have very specific rings shown. So they've both got wedding rings on here. This one is, you can't actually see, if you were here you could see up close that this has got a sort of diamond look to it, and this one is more of just a plain gold band. But on their other hands they've both got some anniversary rings. It's their anniversary coming up, and I don't know whether these were bought for this anniversary or previous anniversaries, but they're matching rings in very bright colours. So I've tried to replicate as much as I can their rings just from the photographs that I've had to look at. And they sit on this bench, which is still covered in plastic to protect it while I've been working on them. So this is them sitting on their bench, and I think that works quite well. So the next step with this now is when I finish varnishing them, I will actually secure them to the bench with glue, and then they're actually going to be on a wooden base, which Rob is going to make for me. He's very good at making things from wood, so he's going to make me a very nice base out of a nice piece of wood that the bench will sit on. And then my intention is to underneath their feet to do a sort of paved or gravelly area that you tend to find under park benches, and then around the legs of the bench I'll just do a little bit of grass and, you know, sort of foliage, really, the sort of things, weeds really, that grow up around park benches, just to finish it off. So when we meet again, if I haven't sent this off to them by then, I mean, they're in America, so I should be sending it probably after Christmas now, so that it doesn't get caught up in the Christmas post. So if I've still got it, I'll show you, and if not, I'll show you photographs of the finished piece. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to push that back there for a minute, and we'll do some varnishing on that in a moment. The other thing we're going to do this evening is to show, can you come back up to me? Yeah, we're going to show some of your work. If you remember the last time we met, I said if you wanted to send me some photographs of work that you've done, not necessarily papier-mâché, then we would try and show them this evening. Well, I didn't have a great number of things sent to me, but what we have we will show you, and you can admire lovely work actually, so I hope you look forward to seeing that in just a few minutes. The other thing we're going to do this evening is do a little bit more on the piece that we've been working on together. So can you come back down onto here, please? So this is, I've moved it on slightly since I last saw you. If you remember, this was our reference picture, just a simple pose. Now I have changed it slightly because I wanted to get a bit more attitude in the piece. So whereas in the photograph the girl has got both hands in front of her, clasped in front of her, I'm going to have one arm in front of her, but the other I've got with her hand in her back pocket. I like that pose. I think it just gives it a little bit more character. And I'm going to give, when I give her a head, I'm going to put an expression on there that matches this stance. I've sort of decided what I'm going to do, but I'll keep that under wraps till we see each other again. Okay. But this evening, as you see, I've gone on a little bit with it just so that we can move it forward a bit. So I've actually started the sleeve of her jumper, and I've done a little bit more detail on the jeans at the back. I've done a bit more of the sort of seams that you get on the jeans, and a little bit of the waistband. And I've done half the back of the jumper, the way that it folds and drapes at the back. So this evening, what I intend to do to show you is I'm going to work on this arm, and as you can, I'll talk about how we've done that in a minute, and also do a bit of work on the front of the jumper and the back of the jumper as it fits into this arm here. The other thing I want to show you is, I don't know whether you can see on here, if you can go closer in, Rob. I don't know whether you can see on the jumper, I've done a little bit of texture. Can you just see around here? I've just done a texture to make it look like a knitted jumper. And the way I've done that is to press a piece of knitting into the wet papier-mâché. So I'll show you how I do that later on. But it's a nice effect, and especially when you come to colour it, if you use the dry powder method that I always use, when you rub dry powder into this, it beautifully picks up the texture of this knitting that's been pressed into the jumper and gives a very nice knitted look to the piece. So I intend really to, I think, we've probably had enough of working on this one in these videos. So after tonight, I will actually work on it over Christmas. I'll have finished my commission, and I'll be looking for something to do just over Christmas. So I think I'm going to try and finish this one off to show you the finished piece when we meet again. And if you want to, when we meet again, we can start a new piece. If you want to send me suggestions for things you'd like to see, then we can start on a new piece and work on it together. All right. So that's her so far. So we'll work on that in a minute. But I think first of all, shall we show the photographs that you've sent me of your work? So if Rob puts up the photographs, I'll tell you a little bit about each one. Not that I know a great deal, but I will tell you what I know. So this first piece is by a lady called Liz Pepper. Now Liz came on one of my workshops, papier-mâché workshops recently, and did some lovely work. But papier-mâché is not her usual medium. She works in pastels, and that's what this is. It's called Six of the Best, and it's just a bowl of eggs, and it's done in pastels. I think she's done a lovely job with this, and I love the 3D effect of the eggs. And because she's so talented in this sort of area of shading and things, when she came to do 3D work with me, she actually understood the way that when you're sculpting, you have to think 3D, you have to look round corners and see and try and portray what's behind what you can actually see. So I think she's done a great job in this piece, and the colours are lovely, lovely and vibrant to show off the eggs in this bowl. So well done, Liz. Thank you for sending that in to show us. Right, now the next three pictures are by a lady called, sorry, I've got this written down, Joelle Gerstel. Now I apologise if I've not pronounced that correctly, Joelle. Joelle is from Israel, and she sent me 3 pieces of her papier-mâché work. So this is a lovely piece full of character of a couple dancing. And she's done a great job with balance here. As you can see, you know, they're really at a very tricky angle. So the way she's got them standing up well, I think she's probably fixed them to the board that it's standing on. But even so, it creates a lot of movement in the piece, and I love the way she's done that. So well done, Joelle, for that one. You see her next piece. This is a lovely colourful sort of string of fish, actually, and it's I love the way she's coloured them, and the way she's given each fish a different character, and she's obviously varnished them or glued them so they've got a lovely sheen to them, and this would be a very attractive piece to hang up in your house. Thank you for that. And her third one is this piece, which is very clever, actually. It is papier-mâché, but it looks like pottery to me. So well done again, Joelle. You had to send us a message and tell us how you did that. It'd be interesting to know how you actually formed it, and how you did the colour on it. It does look like a piece of fired pottery. So thank you very much for sending that in and showing us. You could send us some more details if you like. And finally, this is by Liz Gamble, who is one of our regulars on this show. And actually, last time we met, I was showing everybody how to make a face, a bust. And we looked at a piece, a face of an elderly man. And I think this inspired Liz to have a go at doing her own. And I think it's great. It's got loads of character. And I love his sort of twinkly eyes and his wrinkly face and his moustache. Very good. And she tried the paper method of colouring with tissue paper, and we can have a closer look, I think, on one of the next photos of the hat. She did a nice sort of tweedy looking hat there. That's good, with a little button on the top in a different tweedy pattern. So I think it's very successful, Liz, so well done on that. And it's been posted all over the place on Facebook, and you've had lots of lovely comments, so well done you. It's a really good piece of work. So I hope you'll do some more faces, because you've done well with that, and I think it's very promising. I look forward to seeing more faces of yours. Okay, so that's all we had. So if you do want to send me your work for future broadcasts, then do so, and I'll try and show as many as I can. Send me a bit of information about them so I know how you made them, and maybe what your inspiration was and how you coloured them and all that sort of thing. It's all interesting to us because it's we can all learn something from each other. So well done. So the next thing I'm going to do, I think I'm going to just show you a few little bits and pieces, really. So first of all, I wanted to show you the tools that I use. As those of you who've watched me work before know that I usually mainly use my fingers. I don't use a lot of tools, but these are the ones I do use when I do use tools. They're rather messy with papier-mâché. In fact, I'll show you the one I use the most, and you'll be able to tell I use it the most because it's covered in papier-mâché from my sticky hands when I'm doing it. But I like this one because it's got a nice spoon-shaped end to it, which I find sculpts very nicely. But I bought these from Amazon, and they're actually tools for modelling in wax, and they're made of stainless steel, so they're very durable. And the good thing is you get about 12 in a set, but each piece has got 2 different heads, so you end up with over 20 different heads to use, and there's all sorts of different shapes. And you're bound to find something amongst all this lot that you find works well for you. So I tend to use the spoon-shaped ones, and also you can find it. This one, which has got a nice spiky head to it. It's very good for doing fine details. And what I tend to do with this one is to just get it wet in some water and dip it into my pot of papier-mâché clay. So when you come to doing really tiny details, so for instance on the teeth that I did for these two, what I tend to do is to get this little pointy tool, dip it in some water and just get a tiny little piece of clay like that. Hold it against the dark background so you can see it. See how tiny it is? And then you can just put it into the mouth and just shape the tooth. So these really tiny tools are very useful. Okay, they're really quite inexpensive, these tools. I think this set cost about, well, I'm doing it in pounds because I know a lot of you aren't in the UK, but they cost about £10 probably for a set of 12, which gives you 24 heads. And I think they'll last me forever actually, because they're just so durable. And the good thing about them is that you see them in this pretty awful state now, but I can stick them in a dishwasher and they come up all shiny and new again. So really well worth the money. So I just thought you might be interested in that this evening. Right, so what I'm going to do first is to finish off the varnishing on our couple here. So I'm just going to show you what varnish I use. I do like to put a matte varnish on because I like my pieces to not be shiny unless it's necessary to be shiny. So I tend to leave the lips and the eyes with just glue on them so that it retains the shiny look, because then it gives a look of moisture on the lips and in the eyes. And in this piece I'm going to leave Cindy's scarf shiny because I want it to have a sort of silk look to it, so it's got a bit of sheen on it. But the other things, the shirt she's wearing, I have dulled it down by using a matte varnish, and the same with Steve's shirt, because I don't want it to be shiny. I find they look a bit puppet-like if they're shiny, and so certainly their faces I use a matte varnish because I don't want to have shiny faces. Okay, so I'm going to show you the varnish I use. This is the matte varnish I use. It is quite expensive. Again, I buy this from Amazon, and you can see I'm down to about here on the bottle. But I've had this for ages, you know, months and months and months. And not only have I used it, but I've done several workshops with, so numerous people have used this for their pieces. So you can see it's gone a long way. I mean, all that has been used by not only me, but lots and lots of people over several months. So it's very worth it. And I like the way it takes all the sheen off where I want it to. And it's sort of, when I use my colour method with the dry powders, it sort of melds everything together very nicely. So I recommend this. And I don't know, you can probably see this now quite clearly if you want to order something similar. Okay. So although it's a little bit expensive, it's worth it because it lasts a long time. So what I do is I actually get a little saucer, and just, you only need a tiny bit. So if I just squirt a little bit into there. Now the bits I need to just varnish, the bits I haven't varnished yet, are Steve's hand, this hand. I've done the other hands, but I just want to take a little bit of sheen off this hand. So I'll do that first.
So you're using water as well?
No, I just got my brush. It was soaking in water, so I just took it out of the water and just dried it on my apron actually. But it doesn't matter if your brush is a little bit wet. And then I'm just going to, tell me if I go out of shot, Rob.
That's fine.
I'm just going to put that on his hand, and I'm avoiding his wedding ring because I want that to retain a bit of shine. So I'm just going to, you only need the tiniest bit. It helps to seal the piece, to avoid things like mould coming on your piece. But but it just dampens it down a little bit. Now also this shirt cuff was something that I did quite recently, so although it's been glued, it hasn't been varnished, so I'm just going to do that.
Liz Gamble says, can we do a lesson on hands at some stage?
Oh, yes. Yes. Now, I think I've said to you before about hands. I used to be really nervous of doing hands, and I did everything to avoid them, including putting hands in pockets and hiding them behind folds of clothes and things, just so that I didn't have to show them because I was so awful at them. But then I really studied them in anatomy books and things, and I just got to love doing hands. And they are fiddly, and you do have there's a bit of trial and error with them. But in the end, I think it's very satisfying when you end up with a good hand. Now I've noticed there's a little bit of shine up here, so I'm just going to do that bit. And these are just bits where I've added things since I put the first layer of paper on. So just where I see something that looks a bit shiny, I'm just flicking a bit of this varnish on. I want to leave the shoes a little bit shiny at the top. I don't know whether you can see, I've done, I'm a bit like this, I love the details. I've done little individual laces on these shoes, and I've done that with little twists of tissue paper. Because there's no paint on here, it's all done with paper or dry powder. The glasses and everything, they're all made of paper.
You could probably hold it nearer to the camera, upwards.
Where's it? Oh.
Straight up.
Yeah?
Straight up. Yeah, you can get a bit
There.
closer.
So is that better? Can you see there? So now I'm just going to turn it round and just do the sleeve on the back. As you can see, this sleeve is quite shiny because it's had glue put on it to hold the tissue paper on, but it hasn't been varnished. So I just put a little bit on here.
That tissue paper is a serviette, is it?
No, this actually is tissue paper. It is a coloured tissue paper. I'll show you how I did this in a minute. Let me just do this first, and then when this is dried, hopefully you'll be able to see the difference. It is worth doing, in my opinion anyway. I'm just going to put a little bit more varnish on my saucer. I do it in small amounts so I don't waste it. Actually, having said that, I've just splodged out a big load of it, so I have to use this up now. Right, so this back sleeve. And then just across the back of his shoulders here. It's a little bit shiny there. A little bit on her hair there. And then just a little bit around under his arm there where the glue has gone onto her shirt, which I'd already varnished. So I'd already taken the shine off it, but by putting the glue on his sleeve, I put a bit more glue on it and made it shiny again. So you can just keep adding. And in fact, I mean, it doesn't matter too much at the back here because this is going to be up against the bench, so you won't actually see a lot of this, but I do like to be quite thorough about it. A little bit on her skirt there, which is shiny. I'm going to leave the hem of her skirt because I don't know whether you can see, but there's a nice pattern running around it. I think Cindy likes to wear sort of ethnic style clothing, and there's a lovely pattern around here. Again, this was I'll show you the napkin I used for this in a minute, but I want to keep that pattern. And because it's got a sort of gold pattern to it, I want to keep it a little bit shiny so that it stands out. So I'm only going to put varnish on the actual skirt bit, not the border around it. So I think that is done. I can't see anything else I want to dull down, so I'll just sit them back on the bench for the moment, and I'll show you the paper that I used for various bits of these. So this is the colour palette I used for them. So Steve's trousers were done in this sort of grey-brown coloured tissue paper, and you just literally rip off little pieces and stick it onto the model with water until you're happy where you've placed it, and when you're happy you just glue it all into place, and it'll all meld together as if it's one piece of fabric rather than lots of little pieces. So that was his trousers. And the shirt, this is actually tissue paper with a nice pattern on it, and I thought this was perfect for the shirt, and it's the sort of shirt that in all the reference photos Steve sent me, he tends to wear a lot of checked shirts, and he tends to wear a lot of, well, I think he thinks to wear quite a lot of this sort of colour palette, and I thought it looked pretty nice with the trousers. So I thought it was a good choice of shirt, and I think it's turned out pretty well, and it matches his hat quite nicely too.
Where did you get that?
I got this, oh gosh, where did I get this? I tend to look on places like Amazon for, if you just type in tissue paper or napkins, because I use a lot of paper napkins as well if they've got a good pattern on. So if I see them, when I'm out and about as well, if I go to a shop that sells paper napkins, I'm always having a look through, because I've got a chest full of different tissue papers and napkins in here. They need to have small patterns, because obviously the scale I work on, my pieces are small, so you don't want anything with too big a pattern on, because it'd just be too big for the piece. So for instance, this was a paper napkin that I used for Cindy's skirt in this piece, but there was no way I could use these elephants because they're just too big. The scale is too big for Cindy, who is very little in this sculpture. So what I did was I used this part for her main skirt, and then I used this little border here as the border that goes around the skirt. And I liked this pattern because it tones in nicely with the pattern I was using for Steve's shirt. And then I wanted to put another colour with it, and Cindy does like bright colours. You can tell from all the reference photos that I was sent for her, she does love bright colours, and I thought this nice deep blue went really well with the orange skirt. She also seems to wear scarves, and I couldn't find a piece of tissue paper or napkin that I felt went well with this particular outfit, but I wanted something that should tie the two colours together. So what I did was, I show you the model again, I made it up myself. So I sculpted the scarf in the papier-mâché clay, and then I tore off little pieces of the blue, the skirt stuff, paper, and then I just found a nice gold coloured napkin, and then I just mixed all three colours together, little pieces just stuck on, and I think it's given quite a nice effect of a sort of colourful silk scarf. So, and I think it ties the skirt and the top together nicely. I hope you agree. And then Cindy wears nice bright coloured shoes. She's got, in some of the photos I've seen, she's got these nice bright orange shoes, so I thought they were a good choice to give her. Okay, so when you're using tissue paper, obviously it's just one layer, so you haven't got to worry about, you just use it as it is. But when you use the napkins, normally they come with 3 layers of paper, so I take the 2 back layers off and just leave the top one, so it's really very thin, and then you can, when you put it on with water onto the sculpture, in fact I'll just show you a little bit on how I do it. if I just tear off a little piece, move this out of the way. So if I just get, this is just a little piece of, sort of reject bit of papier-mâché. So this is hard papier-mâché. If I just show you how I do it, so I get a piece of tissue paper, place it on where I want it to go, and then just with a wet paintbrush, this is literally just water, you just brush it on like that. And if you get a couple of wrinkles in it, that's okay, because it's fabric. It's supposed to be fabric, and you would get little creases and things in the fabric. So you can see the water just sucks it onto the papier-mâché and holds it in place. But it means that if you feel you put it in the wrong place, you can literally just take it off. You just get your brush wet and you can just take it off and start again. And then when you're happy where it is on the piece, then you get some glue and just brush it over the top, and it'll hold it securely in place. Okay, so that's what we do with that.
Do you let it dry first before you put that glue on?
You don't have to. I tend to let it dry for no particular reason, really. I don't know why I do. You don't have to. I suppose you do. What you need to be careful about is when you start to add the glue to the tissue paper, if it's not firmly set on with the paper, with the water, it can lift off. So you have to be quite delicate when you put the glue on, so that you don't lift off what you've put on.
So Liz just asked, which I think is the same question, do you glue as you go or wait until it's finished?
A combination, really. It depends what I'm working on. So this piece, I mean, everything has had to be done in stages because of having access to things. I worked on them as two separate pieces, but when you're trying to get in there, for instance, behind her hand, you do need to think what comes first. So the blue top is on top of the orange skirt. So I did the skirt first, glued it all into place, and then started working on the top. So you have to sort of just plan it out a bit, and decide, what's going to work best for you. You don't want to get yourself into a corner where you can't reach something because you've glued something else in place first. And I did actually come unstuck with their hands because, as I say, I worked on them as two separate people. And then when it came to doing their hands, I actually put this hand on, literally just a hand without an arm. So she just had a hand sitting on her shoulder, because I knew that I was going to join them together by joining this arm to this hand. But I couldn't do it too soon because otherwise I wouldn't be able to get Cindy into place, tucked in to his shoulder. And the last thing I did was this hand, because if I'd put it on first, I couldn't get Cindy in underneath it. So I had to do it last, and that's what fixed them together. That and this arm at the back here, that actually joined them together. So they're quite firmly together now. And then the next thing is to just glue them onto their base. Alright, so I hope that's shown you a little bit about what you can do with the wonders of tissue paper as opposed to paint. It does mean that you've got a bit more control over joining bits together. So for instance, you'd need quite a steady hand to paint this without getting the orange on the blue or the blue on the orange, and things like the scarf, and she's got a little white top underneath her, or cream top, so you'd need a very steady hand to paint all that without going over the edges, if you like. Whereas with the paper, you can tuck the paper in, and you can put it on with the water. If you don't think it's right, you can take it off. It does give you a bit more confidence, I think. And I think that the fact that this tissue paper is so thin, you can retain all the lovely sculpting you've done. So I don't know if you can see on this where I've done all the pleats, the draping of his shirt as his arm stretches back behind Cindy's head. I've done that with the papier-mâché clay. I've sculpted all these little creases in, and then when you put the paper on the top, because it's so thin, it sucks onto there and retains all those folds. You can see it all still. I think it gives a really realistic effect. So I hope you'll have a go at that and enjoy it. I love that section. It's very, very satisfying putting the tissue paper on. It's fiddly, and especially with things like the check shirt, you do have to match up when you're using little pieces. It's no good trying to do it in one big piece because you just end up creasing it in the wrong places and ripping it and all this. It's much better to do it in small pieces, and then you have to be careful how you match the check on it. But anyway, I hope that's been of interest to you this evening and that you might have a go at doing that if you haven't already. So I'll put that back there. And as I say, when we meet again, they should be completely finished, and I'll either show you them as they are or I'll show you a photograph. So in the last half hour we've got to us, we'll have a look at this. Carry on with our piece. So as I showed you earlier, I've moved it on a little bit. I did, as I said, I did a bit of the jeans. I put this arm in here. I put her hand in her pocket. Now, I said to you earlier, I used to do everything I could to hide hands, and this time I didn't hide her hand in the pocket because I didn't want to do a hand. I did it because I liked the attitude, the pose that she's in, and I think, you know, that's the sort of thing someone would do, is to put their hand in their jeans pocket. But what I have done is, I don't know whether you can see, I've made a slight outline of her hand so that you can see that it's inside a pocket, that, you know, her hand wouldn't be, you would see a bit of a shape of a hand through the pocket, and that will become more apparent when I've finished doing this arm. So the arms themselves, as you can see, I've used cocktail sticks, just these, just wooden, I don't know whether you call them cocktail sticks or toothpicks or whatever, but they're just things, just wooden sticks. So what I did was to just stick into the wet clay of the shoulder like that, and then attach another one going across there, and just put a little blob of clay on there and there to secure them, and that's really firm now as it's dried, so that I can work on it. And I did the same with this arm. So if I get my clay open, this is a nice new batch of clay that I made yesterday, just so you can see it. There it is. Nice texture to it, so that'll be nice to use. It's actually freezing cold because it's been out in this. It's very cold here at the moment, so yeah, it's gone a bit cold here, but it's still, you know, it's usable. So if we look at our reference picture, we're going to be working on this arm here. So first thing I'm going to do is just cover the stick. So I'm not going to aim to do, you know, a brilliant job of sculpting this arm. I just simply want to cover the stick with the clay. So I'm just going to use my fingers to do this. I've got a little pot of water here. I'm just going to wet my finger in it so that I can spread the clay and join it all together.
Liz says she might pull the arms off the one she's doing and start again.
What did you use, Liz? Did you do it with wood, or did you just sculpt the arms with just neat clay? You can do that, or you could do it with paper. You could just make rolls of paper for the arms. I just find that the sticks are a bit easier to work with.
She used toothpicks.
Oh, good. So that's what you call them, toothpicks. We call them cocktail sticks. So I'm just going to use my spoon-shaped tool because I can't get my finger into this bit up here. So I'll just spread that down like that. And then, oops, put a little bit along this arm, the forearm. So the you need to just sort of decide where the wrist is going to fall on this, just for your own, so you can visualise the arm. And because we've got a good set of reference photos here, we've got the front of the arm and the back of the arm, which is nice and useful to be able to see. So I'm not doing any real sculpting of this arm yet, I'm just getting it covered, because when it's dry it'll be a lot easier to work on, it'll be nice and firm, and then you can start shaping it. So I think that the wrist is going to start about here, back from there. So this last bit of stick here will be a little bit of wrist, and then the start of the hand, which I'll just have her resting it on her belly there, in quite a relaxed, casual sort of position. Try and have, you know, no tension in the hand at all. I want it to look very relaxed. So I think the whole pose is quite a relaxed pose. So obviously this arm looks very skinny now, because I haven't shaped it. I'm just covering the stick. Okay, so that's that. Excuse me. So here, this bit, the hand is going to cover up the sort of central bit of the jeans here. So we're not going to see much that's going on behind these jeans. What I might do as before I do the hand is to just do a little bit more to the fly area of the jeans, just to show that there's a seam down there, and perhaps do a little bit more of these crease marks across here as it's stretched across her very flat tummy, I have to say. I'm quite envious of her. And to show a little bit more that the thigh just bulges slightly here, and I think by putting a few creases in there that will show that. But this part of the jumper, in our reference picture, of course her hands are covering the whole of this front area, but because my other hand is round the back of her, I need to do something with this jumper here. So I just want, at the back here, I've got the jumper just sort of as if it's billowed forward a bit and it's tucked into the jeans. So I want to sort of just show this bit at the front, just sort of slightly billowing, just to get the movement in the material of this jumper. So I'm going to just, with a wet finger, just blend that in, and then I just want to show that that's tucked into the jumper. So I'm going to put a sort of little crease in here, like a little fold there, to suggest that the jumper is sort of tucked in and is just slightly billowing out of the...
Can you show us that side? Good.
The waistband. Mm. Yeah. So you see now with that little crease there, you just got a little bit more movement in the fabric, and it just looks as if it's tucked into the waistband. And I will eventually make more of a waistband going around here, so it's obvious that that's what's happening. Then I'm just looking at my reference photo here, Actually, we're doing this side tonight, so I must look at this more. There's a little crease just there. Can you come in closer on there? I'm not sure whether it shows very clearly, but there's a tiny little crease just going up there, which I want to get in. So I just get a little bit of clay. Just put it on here. I don't want to lose the form we've got of the body underneath this jumper, so I'm doing everything very lightly. But I think these little creases make all the difference. They really bring a piece to life, because you know, you do see the movement in the piece. The other thing I want to do is to just create a little seam there, so that you can see where the jumper joins onto the sleeve. There is a little seam that would go around there where the jumper's sewn together. So I might just use my tool here just to lift that slightly as it goes round. So when we come to, oh, hang on, where are we going here? Can you bring it down a bit? Ah, that's better. Yeah, so when we come to do the sleeve, that little seam we've created there will make, it'll become a bit more obvious what it is. Okay, so now I'm going to turn her round, and I just want to, in the reference picture here, you can see this lovely crease that's coming down in the jumper there. I like that, and I really want to get that in. So it's coming down, here's her shoulder blade, which we've created here, and that crease goes down in a nice big fold, which actually wraps round to the front of her. So I want to get that in, and this will need a fair amount of clay, and I'm just going to roll it into a sort of sausage shape like that, and I'm going to just place it on there and squish it down with my finger. So we can start to get this. I think I've got a little bit too much clay on here, so I'll just take that bit off. Just want to manipulate it around. You can just play about with it really till it looks right to you. Okay, so you've got that fold there, and then you've got another little fold just coming down there. Just do that. So we create a little valley there. And I want to just join that onto the bit I've already done here. And again, this is sort of tucked into the waistband. Excuse me. So I'm going to, oh, we're both coughing tonight, unhealthy pair. Right, so I'm just going to look round to the front of this and just make sure that that is blended in. And again, I need to use the tool because I can't get my finger in underneath her arm. You're all very quiet tonight. I don't know whether questions are coming in, but do ask me things if you think of them. I'll try and answer them. Right. So now this, obviously there's this shoulder and this arm will be much wider, so it looks a little bit odd at the moment because you've got this sticking out quite a bit here, but it'll make a lot more sense when this arm and sleeve is put into place correctly. So I might just do a little bit of the upper arm just to make sense of that. So this arm is coming down like that. Keep thinking 3D, so the arm goes round, so make sure that you do get that effect. And then you've got a nice crease in the jumper coming down the side of the upper arm and into the body. Where her arm is sort of tucked in, it's created a fold in the fabric of the jumper. So I'm going to just put that in there.
Nancy Hudson, what kind of glue do you use? This is our first time seeing your process. Can you post the recipe for the clay? Thanks so much for sharing.
Right, now I think the recipe is in a link at the bottom of your screens. I think it is there, isn't it, Rob?
It's on the, it should be on the video description.
Yes.
If it's not on this one, it's on the previous ones. We always post the recipe for the clay.
Yeah, now you can find the link there. It's, if you can't find it, it's a lady called Johnny Good, who has got, she's a wonderful papier-mâché artist, and I've used her recipe since I started doing papier-mâché. I've never used anything else because it's just such a lovely recipe and it always works. So you can, I'm sure the link is there, but if you can't find it for any reason, just Google Johnny Good and you'll find it. She's very well known in the papier-mâché world. And
the type of glue?
Oh, the type of glue, just PVA glue. I don't know whether you call it that wherever you are in the world. Let me just show you what it looks like. This is it. General purpose PVA glue. I don't know whether it's a set. I've heard in America there's a glue called Elmer's glue. I don't know whether that's the same thing. I think it might be, but it's just basic white glue. I use it for everything. It's part of the recipe, and I use it for gluing things onto, when I'm putting the tissue paper on. I use this all the time. I don't use any other glue. So I buy it in big pots like this because I use so much of it, and it lasts for ages. So, experiment with what you've got wherever you live and see what works best for you. But it's very basic glue. It's not a special glue. It's a sort of multi-purpose glue. Right, so here's the arm now, and you can see now that seam that we've put around the shoulder is making a bit more sense. I'll just do a bit to the shoulder here. Just trying to get the feel of the roundedness of a shoulder here. Okay. Pull that round. The arm comes down like that, but there's there's a gap in there because that's the very inside of her arm there. So we want to really poke it in so that you can see that the arm is rounded. So I'm just going to tuck that in like that. And you can see that. It's giving you an impression of the sort of flatness of the inner part of the arm. And then you can pull it out and round. So you get the effect of the rounded arm. And of course, because this is a jumper, we're going to put all sorts of wrinkles and folds, like we've done in this. I'll get this right. In this sleeve, you can see I've started to put in the folds of the jumper because I think I'm going to have her with this jumper sleeve pushed up. So this will be bare skin, and that's her jumper sleeve pushed up. So it will have created all these wrinkles as she's pushed it up. So we'll have the same thing over this side. So I'm not too bothered about getting a nice smooth finish on this at the moment because it's going to have all these folds put on it. So I'll just join that up so that it's nice and rounded. A bit more clay just to fill in that little hole that's there. Just a wet finger. So what I tend to do is, even though I know that this arm is not going to be a bare arm at the top, I try and sculpt it as if it's a bare arm to start with, so I get the shape of it where the muscles are. And then you add the folds and wrinkles of the sleeve, and because you've got a good framework underneath it, it makes a lot more sense when you come to sculpt the rest of it. So you see I'm gradually building up that shoulder so that it feeds into the shoulder blade here, and this arm needs to be, I mean, it will be a lot fatter when you put the jumper folds on the top because it's extremely skinny here at the moment. It won't be this as thin as that. Okay, so you can see it's starting to take shape now. Turn it round. Now while it's still wet, I want to show you this way that you can put texture into your piece. So on this section here, which is still soft and wet, I want to give it the look of knitting. So I've got this little piece, this is just a jumper that I've just chopped up, but it's got a nice knitting pattern, nice texture to it. So I'm just going to drape it across the wet sculpture, and very gently, without getting rid of the shapes that I've created with the wet clay, just going to press it in very gently into the wet clay like that. Making sure I get into all the nooks and crannies. And then as I peel it off, you'll see it's created, can you see that? Nice texture to the piece. And as I said earlier, when you then add dry powder, coloured powder to this, I haven't decided what colour this jumper is going to be yet, but you'll retain this lovely pattern. The powder will get into all the grooves and really bring the pattern out. Now if you've missed a bit, you can just gently go back over some of it. Okay, now I think I'll just do this shoulder, although this shoulder's, the texture is going to get covered up because I'm going to do the folds and wrinkles, but just so you can see, look at that, that's really lovely. I love that, and that'll give a lovely texture. But what I have done now is I've actually lost a bit of definition here, but you know, as I said, I'm going to go over this again. So I'm just going to just do that. Now the other thing you can do is to use a wet paintbrush just to run through this, and it just separates things out a little bit. It's like painting with clay then. It's quite a nice way to manipulate the clay around the piece. So I can just make a bit more of a feature of that little seam I've created there. And I can just, on this bit here, if it's still wet enough, just press the knitting into that. And just get a bit of texture into that. Okay. So I hope that's been helpful. So if you are working on this piece at home, then I hope that this will give you a few ideas of what you can do with yours, just to keep it full of movement and interest and texture. And then when we meet again, I hopefully will have done quite a lot more to this, if not finished it. And I can talk you through things I've done, perhaps demonstrate stuff if there's anything new that you haven't seen before. Okay, obviously the next thing to do with this one, once I've completed the arms and the sleeves and things, is to give her a head. So I haven't done much towards a neckline for this jumper because I have to create the neck here and the shoulder, the collarbones here, and then create a little head. And so I might just do the head separately and then fix it on afterwards, rather than work on it attached to the body. And then of course we've got to do the bottom of her legs, because we haven't gone any further than her knees at the moment. So I think what I'm going to give her is some chunky boots. I think she would wear these skinny, very skinny jeans with chunky boots on the bottom. So obviously this is too long, this stick. I think her leg will actually eventually come to about there. So this much of the stick will be chopped off eventually. Then I have to decide then how I'm going to get it to stand up. So I think I might actually leave these extra bits on so that I can sink them into a wooden base. So that'll actually hold her up very securely. But we can talk about all that when I get that far, and we see how she's shaped up. So there's one more thing I want to show you this evening, which is just a bit of fun really. Rob and I this weekend have been very busy actually. We've been helping to run a Christmas tree festival in our church in South Wales, and the point of this, oh, Rob's phone going on. The point of this festival is that we have about 40 trees in the church, all on display, all decorated and lit, and they're all done by various charities or local businesses or schools or private individuals or groups of whatever sort. Now I'm part of a gardening group at our church. We look after the churchyard and we mow the lawns and keep the place looking tidy. So we decided to enter a tree for this festival, and our theme was the churchyard and keeping it tidy. So part of the thing was we had wheelbarrows and tools and things as part of our tree, but I decided to make a gravestone to show that it was the churchyard. So I thought I'd show you this evening. It's very rough and ready, but it was actually quite effective, and it shows you how easy it is to make sort of props and scenery from papier-mâché. So I just thought you'd like to see this. It's rather larger than I usually make. So this is it, and it's made from polystyrene. You can see underneath here. So I cut 2 pieces of polystyrene and stuck them together, and then I just sliced off a bit here so it looked old and rugged, and I just carved into it some very rough, it's not very good actually at all, but it did the job for this piece. Just R.I.P. and then a name and a date there. But this was done with the coloured paper technique that I was telling you about. So what I did was I just brushed onto it lots of greys and browns and greens, powder all over it. And then I really sanded it. I was very, very rough with this. I sanded it and scraped at it and, you know, really battered it and gave some darker patches and others. And you can see on the back as well. And it eventually, well, I think it looks quite stone-like. And then I glued it all and, sorry, I've got stones going on. I glued it all and varnished it. And this was the finished product. And then I stuck a bit of pretend grass around it here. This is just tissue paper. And then it was next to our tree and all the gardening tools and things. And it looked very effective. So I just wanted to show you this just so you can see the fun you can have making things out of papier-mâché. I know people use papier-mâché to make scenes for train sets and all sorts of things like that. So, you know, you can have a lot of fun with them and it's very easy to do. And this clay method is great for it. So I just thought that might be interesting for you. Right, so just to finish off, a couple of things to tell you. So our next session, if we followed our normal pattern of meeting on the first Sunday of the month, we would actually be meeting on New Year's Day. So I thought we would skip it in January because I, for one, will be doing things with my family, I hope. I'm sure all of you have got plans for New Year's Day and you won't want to watch me doing this on New Year's Day. So we'll meet next on the 5th of February. That's the first Sunday in February. By which time, hopefully you'll have lots of things to show me and I'll have lots of things to show you, and we can, you know, tell each other about our Christmases and all this sort of thing. So that's when we'll meet next. Next year I'm planning to do quite a lot of workshops at my house. So if you are in the UK and you're close enough or want to come and stay in Cardiff and do a workshop with me, then do get in touch and we can sort that out. So in the meantime, I just want to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year in 2023. And this is Rob. I thought you might like to see him because you hear his voice in the background and he's great. He does all the technical stuff for me. So we both wish you very, very happy holiday and Christmas and whatever you celebrate in your homes. And we'll see you in February. So thanks for watching and I'll see you